Hello and welcome. This is an autoethnography on liminality and English language teaching. I'm Maria Lisak. I teach at Chosun University in South Korea. I'd like to say thank you to the city of Gwangju in South Korea, where I have been living for the past 20 years, and to historic Chosun University, where I've worked for the past 10 years. Uh, on March 1st, South Korea celebrates its Independence Day from colonial Japan. And to honor that day, I read the book Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. The book is fiction, but the complications of living our identities in a post-colonial, post-truth, globalized world are very real. So, from fiction to autoethnography, let's share our stories to listen to the cacophony of life and learn from each other. Today, I'm going to review my dissertation that I did on autoethnography. I'm going to share my research questions, some definitions, the methodology, my theoretical framework, and the data collection and analysis, and then an analysis of the analysis, and then talk about the relevance of my study and some findings. I asked two questions. How am I decolonizing my teaching practice and my life? I am a US American of Polish background. I'm not Korean, but I'm here living in South Korea, and I'm wanting to know how living here for the past 20 years has helped me to decolonize some of the colonial implicit legacies that I've brought with me. And my other question was, how has liminality, this living between two worlds, between the US and South Korea, how has that informed my teaching, my pedagogy? I think autoethnography is a great choice to investigate these questions. I can look at the different circulations in the meaning making. And I'm going to be doing an actual performance, a kind of panel discussion, instead of a typical written analysis of an artifact, to tell my personal story as well as how it drops into the story of South Korea. In organizing my thoughts, I looked at the theorization of funds of knowledge, and there are three areas that helped me to tell my story, talking about relationships, talking about my dark funds of knowledge, the things like colonialism, white supremacy, and the types of things that are a little different in South Korea. Not necessarily white supremacy, but more colorism that goes on, as well as white saviorism. But the primary thing that I'll be focusing on today is talking about the hybridity of my funds of knowledge, walking between that etic and emic stance, and looking at that as an area of resourcefulness, an area of vulnerability, and looking at the liminality of that dead space between the two places. For my autoethnography, I took a artifact. It was a Voicethread, which is a visual story with audio and written comments that I made during my graduate studies. It was a reflection on my teaching in South Korea. And this story was not a new story. This was a story that I told so many times as I met new people coming to live and teach in South Korea. So for my dissertation, I chose to take this artifact and analyze it more with another reflection. But how to do that? Well, evocative autoethnography helped me to look at the panel discussion, something that happens regularly in my teaching life, as a way to look at the voice thread again for more meaning. Well, looking at a panel discussion, I realized there are different aspects of myself that help to nuance and tell my story of living and teaching in Korea. So I put those 5 different characters on a panel, 5 different Korea Marias, and talk about the voice thread that I made. Here we have an example of some of the Voicethread slides that I had. So I have the word grok made up with different images of a mashup of Korean and American, as well as generational ideas. Then I have some other mashups of my meaning making. The personal avatars on the discussion represented 5 different Korea Marias. My logo, me in hanbok, which is Korean traditional dress, a superhero, Mountain Goat Maria, and the gossip. These images I had created over the years to talk about my life and using in my teaching blog. So for the data analysis, I was going to make this panel discussion of this thread artifact. And these 5 different discussants would talk about my decolonialization practices and how liminality was affecting my pedagogy. This panel discussion pivoted these 5 different personas to look at these 2 questions, decolonizing my life and teaching, and how liminality is affecting my teaching. The different slides had different images, which then the panel responded to organically, picking up whatever they felt was important to help them talk about some of the different issues that I was facing. The 5 key critiques by the panel discussions can be seen in 5 key slides here. The critic discusses kind of the initial images and stereotypes and how there's some problematic colonization in some of the pictures and how some iterations of reflections help to unpack that. And then I have some other topics that were discussed. From this panel discussion as an analysis of that original voice thread, in my dissertation, I then went through and did another assessment of the analysis. And I wanted to see in my panel discussion, did I really talk about how I was decolonizing my teaching practice in life? And from the text that was produced by the panel discussion, I could identify some different areas about assimilation practices in order to become like Korea, appropriation, how I took from Korea, and then criticizing myself and criticizing the host culture of Korea, but then also an advocacy stream where I would advocate for myself within my new context, advocate for my students as they were learning a non-native language, English, and advocating also for other expats of all different nations as a community of in-betweens or marginals living and working in South Korea. When looking at my other research question about liminality, I saw that I was using different language about adaptation, resilience, sustainability, and negotiating distance. Sometimes I was understood, sometimes I wasn't understood. My autoethnography has a foundational element of liminality. Liminality is kind of a dead space, a place where nothing's going on. It's not one thing, it's not another, but it's also a space of potentiality. It's kind of like that space between breaths. We breathe in, we breathe out. But in between those, there's nothing. and that nothing space was a very rich place. And Korea was able to reach me in that rich place of nothing, that liminal space. And it helped me to decolonize my ideas through Korean ideas such as chum, which is a space between spaces, and other concepts such as jung, the special relationship of love and belongingness. Thank you so much for letting me present just the tip of my autoethnography. I can be reached at kwangjumaria@yahoo.com, and this slide deck is also available online. There you'll be able to find my references. 감사합니다. Thank you.